Okay.
Out the Garage Productions over here. We got mixed cameras, we got mixed sound, but let's go.
Yeah, at this point, I wish we were out the garage or somewhere. That'd be great.
Have a
That's
better
coming
sound
soon.
in the garage.
Yeah. All right. All right. So we are recording. All right. So, what's up, freaks and geeks? This is another episode of the Bloody Nerd Podcast. I am your host, if that's what you want to call it. I'm here again with the Graven One and Mr. Professor himself, Sean Anthony. We're going to get into the elephant in the room, which is, of course, the Snyder Cut that just came out recently this past week. Obviously, everybody's talking about it, so of course we got to put our 5 cents in. So, I'm sure we got a lot to talk about. We'll try and keep it, not too overly long-winded, but we'll put our 5 cents in. So
No, we won't.
yeah, well, something like that. But we'll go ahead and get it. We'll go ahead and get in. Whoever wants to jump in first, see what you guys think about. First things first. How many times have either of you seen the movie already? When did it come out? Today's what, the 27th?
I think it's been a week.
It
Yeah,
came out
about
on
a
the
week now.
18th.
Yeah, a little over a week now.
Yeah, it's a little over a week now. All right, so how many times? Listen, I'll be honest with you. I still have only seen it once. So, but how many times have either of you seen it so far?
About you, Sean?
I've seen it twice, actually.
Seen it
I
twice?
saw it the first time straight through, and then I saw it the second time 2 nights.
Gotcha.
You
Yeah,
know?
I seen it twice as well.
Mhm.
I saw it once with my younger son, or my older son, and then the second time with my younger son, all of us together. So
Yeah, I do have to say, like, watching it a second time, because the first time you're a little bit geeked out, you know what I mean?
Right.
And the second time you get to actually view it and try to, critique it a little more.
I
So
agree.
I enjoyed it the second time, and it was, it helped me because I was able to identify more things that I didn't like necessarily,
Right.
that I wasn't too crazy about.
Right.
But after I saw it the first time, man, I was just like, I had to sit down for 15 minutes because so much to take in. I was like, man, I saw something here. I haven't figured out what I've seen, but I saw something.
All right. Well, yeah, like I said, I've only seen it once. It was a weird experience for me because there was a lot about the movie that was different from the original movie.
Mm-hmm.
And there was obviously a lot of things that was crazy to experience. Like, wow, that was awesome. But at the same time, it was like I felt like I was watching something that I had already seen. Not that the Justice League version was the same movie, but I felt like in my head I've already seen this movie. Like I felt like what I was watching was like exactly like this is exactly what I expected you to do with this movie. What didn't happen with the first movie? Everything that happened was like yes, exactly. I didn't feel like, oh my God, I would have never saw that coming. It was almost like a redemption of things. Like, see, motherfucker, this is what I was talking about, type shit. So to me, it was watching the movie was like watching something that I was waiting to experience, but hadn't got a chance to already.
It's like a delayed reaction, right? Like,
yeah,
you got all excited the first time, but then, it got ruined. Pretty much turned into a Marvel version of a Justice League movie.
Yeah.
And I think the whole time, Rick, you were behind it saying like he has a vision, it hasn't been realized. We need to see what his full vision is. So it was like a delayed reaction to this. You finally got to see it, but the excitement of it kind of dwindled down because we had to wait a couple of years for this.
Well, at the same time, I could tell when I talked to Sean afterwards. It was funny because when I talked to Sean afterwards, because he asked me, he was like, "So what'd you think? And I was like, "Yeah, it was good." It was like I could tell that he was like, "Word, motherfucker, like that's it." Like
That's all you gonna say?
That's all you gonna say? Motherfucker?
It's like crickets.
I as much as I loved the movie, everything was great, but at the same time, it was it was hard to explain. It's like I really felt like, yeah, okay, I already knew this shit was gonna be exactly what it was exactly what I expected it to be.
Right.
Right. And so it was kind of like it just wasn't that. It was amazing, but it just wasn't that like if it was the first time I had ever saw anything like it. I don't know. It's hard to explain because I don't want to take anything away from it. There's definitely nothing
Right.
about like I wasn't satisfied with the movie. I was completely satisfied with the movie. You know, it's just
Yeah,
everything
well,
I
that's
expected it to be.
right, and that I think that's a lot of has to be said to the fact that this is a different type of viewing experience. Period. Because we're living in a time where we watched an original format of what was originally thought to be the movie, and then now we're getting this longer cut. We had time, we've had years to take in what we saw that first time around, to deconstruct it, to look at all the angles, to try to figure out what was actually supposed to happen, and then to hear all the different types of rumors and ideas and what people thought was going to happen. And then that kind of enters into your own mind, your own bias to some degree, or unbiased, depending on what you're looking at. And then we get to see this 4-hour epic that's supposed to be an epic, and looking at those types of situations like an opus. And then your brain is like, I really do I like it? Do I not like it? Is it great? Is it not great? Is it phenomenal? Like, because you're already kind of stuck with, like you said, I've already seen this. I've already seen all this stuff. This is just kind of just the straight path that it was supposed to go on. And that's what everyone's taking differently here. It's hard. It's hard for your brain, I feel. It's hard for your brain to kind of say, yes, because you didn't get that new first time feel of never seeing it
we were
before.
robbed of seeing this for the first
Right.
time.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we did see this for the first time, but everything that we went through up to this point has definitely taken away from if this was the very first time we had seen it and the Justice League version never came out.
Right.
So, yeah, in a way, yes, we were kind of robbed of a little bit of that first time out the box feeling. And yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it's definitely a different movie. It's not the same movie from the first one.
Right.
There's so much of it that's not the same as the Josh version, which I'm so glad that it's not, because he just ruined everything. A lot of the shit he did a lot of the edits that he did to the movie made no fucking sense once you see the full version. It makes no sense why he cut out versions of the movie that he cut out. You know?
Right.
Right.
So it's definitely a different movie, because I know I've heard a lot of the fanboys, the Marvel fanboys, bitch and moan that this is just going to be a longer version of the original movie. So it's like, why would I bother to see this movie? I've already seen it. It's just going to be a longer version of what we've already seen, and that was completely wrong, because it definitely was not that. So yeah. So
I think there's no question that the Justice League version ruined this version of the movie. Like, Zack Snyder had a vision. It was cut short. And Josh Whedon, like you said, he came out, he made some terrible, directorial decisions and stuff like that. Now, I don't want to fully blame Josh Whedon, because, of course, DC and the executives there, they wanted to, emulate what Marvel was doing. DC has its own personality. It has its own bloodline, right? And I think Nolan sort of, set the tone for, like, the DC EU in a way. And then you had Zack Snyder come in, who was sort of like a protege of Nolan, and he had this sort of long-term vision. I think it was 5 movies or whatever, and right in the middle, and that's the thing, when Zack Snyder puts together, and I'm guilty of not understanding fully either, right? When he had this vision in mind, from what I hear from the interviews and stuff, the character arcs and the story arcs were longer, right? From Man of Steel to BVS, a lot of misunderstood movies and decisions. This movie, to me, kind of put all of that in a better understanding of what was going on in those 2 prior movies, and then to actually push forward with maybe 2 more movies, right? But we definitely got robbed because of the Josh Whedon version. It's like we saw some kind of version of this movie before this movie came out. And it's just human nature to say, hey, we kind of already saw this already. But we really haven't. I really feel like this is, and again, it's not a perfect movie, but I feel like it's a masterpiece of a movie, right? I feel like, this movie historically is just, it's a victory for the fans. It's a victory for creatives. It's a victory for, it's a victory over the directors and having seen their full vision and not having the executives, ruin that and get in the way of what that vision is. So I think because of that precedent, and also what he delivered ultimately. I think it's a masterpiece of a film. I do have some criticisms of it, which we'll get into or whatever, but unfortunately, it's hard for people to turn off what they've seen with the first version of this, and then to watch this with fresh eyes and say, you know what, man, this is something special.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly like it goes back to what we were saying. Everything before this kind of in some way ruined this, and it took away from this version of the movie.
It really did.
Even though it was great and it did a lot, I think had we have seen this movie out the gate first and foremost without ever seeing the other movie, it would have been a completely different thing. And of course, you have people like, oh well, this movie doesn't compare because look at the box office that Endgame did versus this. Well, this movie wasn't in the theaters. It didn't have that. Like, it was
an unfair criticism.
Yeah, it's an unfair criticism. If you just criticize the movies off of what they are, like the quality of the movie, the writing, the character building, all of that, this movie can stand next to an Endgame or an Infinity War. You know what I'm saying? So if you had given this movie the same marketing, the same time in the theaters and the box office, it could have did the same numbers. You know what I'm saying? Or at least close to the same numbers, if not better. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So you can't just go, oh, obviously it's not good enough because it didn't do the same numbers as this. You can't even compare because we're just going off of the freaking, what is it? What was it on? HBO Max.
HBO Max.
So you can't compare that. But again, it's like talking to children when you talk to some of these fanboys, But that being said,
well, see, that's the thing, right? I wanted to get into my likes or our likes, dislikes, but I also want to address some of those, complaints, especially coming from the Marvel, nerd sphere, if you will, right? I want to address some of that because I think a lot of these cats need to go sit down somewhere, man. Honestly, like, I don't mind hearing a variety of opinions from people. And, even if you didn't like the movie, I could hear anybody's criticisms. I like hearing people's criticisms, but do it in a sort of way that you have integrity. And I think a lot of these guys are not doing it with integrity. You know what I mean? So at some point, I want to talk about that too.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk about that. Real quick, though, I'd like Graven to touch on one of the things Sean said, because I think it was a great point. From a creative standpoint, from somebody like yourself who is working on his own IP, is working on his own IPs, plural, and putting together his own universes and things of that nature. Mm-hmm. Just the fact that someone like Snyder got to do this, and the fact that has never been done before, you know what I'm saying, and how important that is. You know what I'm saying? From somebody from your perspective, how important is it that he got to do this? He got to see his vision, and the fact that most people will never get to do it a second time. You don't get second chances like this.
Yeah, no, I think it was spectacular. I think that was a level of universal serendipity to a certain degree too, of just being able to have closure on the situation based on the tragedy it had in his life on top of it all, which makes it even more stronger of a purpose or push. I think that most directors would give anything to have a moment like that, to have the company do what it did before with Josh's version, and then to be able to say, well, he had to kind of give it up, so to speak, and then to have it come back. No one would have thought that was going to happen. Let's just be honest with it. This is precedent. No one ever thought that this was actually going to happen, really. There was a small period of time where, like, oh, he's not going to have his options. He's not going to get this. There's no Snyder cut. This isn't going to happen. And then to automatically have it, fast forward and all these things fall into place so uniquely, to let him have that, I mean, that's just breathtaking. And then to have it say, okay, we just want it to be gone. See, because kind of where it felt like to me is like they just want it to be gone. Let's just get it over with. Give him what he wants. Get it over with. Let him get it made. Give it to the people. Give it to the fans, and let's just close that book and let's move on. And we're seeing a lot of that in the news, the way Warner Brothers is handling some of the responses, even some of the things that Snyder is saying about what happened during the new process, and some of the things he could and could not do that he just did. I'm doing it anyway, which I think was great. But as a creator, that's what you dream of. You want to have that. Let's be honest too. People don't realize, even the normal fanboys, fangirls, average citizen, person that's just not really in the entertainment area, that just goes to experience it. Let's get real. It takes a lot to just get a movie done. Just to get done. It's not about, everyone thinks it's easy. Because if there's money behind it, it's easy. But you have so many cogs in the wheels, so many things that are moving and pushing and pulling, and so many opinions, and so many shareholders, stockholders, money markets, focus groups, casting agencies that have to hit certain situations, design firms that have to have a certain type of rating. There's so many things involved to actually get the movie from what it's supposed to be to what it is. And most of the time, 99% of the time, the movies that we get are not the movies that they started out to be from the creative vision of what the creator wanted.
Right.
It gets completely chopped down, and they just literally get to the point. You'll see some directors and creators get to a point where, like, I just had to get it out. How many times do you hear directors say that? We just had to get it out. We got to some point where we had to cut. A lot of it ended up on the cutting room floor. We just had to let it go, and this is what we got, and we had to hope for the best. I don't know if you guys hear that a lot, but I hear that a lot. We just had to hope for the best and give you the best experience we could. I just wish I could have made what I wanted to make, and I can only hope that maybe one day I have that opportunity that he had, and that we could, creatively have the ability to do that. I hope that answers your question, man.
Yeah, of course.
Well, also it's because a lot of these creatives and directors and stuff are pressured. They're on the time clock because the studios want to get this out in a certain amount of time. So they're like, hey, cut this, edit this, whatever you have to do, but we want to go, national, by next month. And it's, sometimes it's not enough time. I mean, look what in this specific example with the Justice League version, the studio specifically said this can't be longer than 2 hours.
Right.
Can't be longer than 2 hours. So cut what you need to. So that's why, going back, I don't want to completely blame him.
Right.
Because I guess he thought that, also like putting some of the lifeblood into the Marvel, that was, what he did with Marvel and the Avengers into this would have helped the DC, universe to a certain extent, but it just didn't work because there was already a precedent set of the theme of these movies.
Yeah, and I also wanted to say, I was thinking of this, and this may lead into some of the viewpoints of looking at, what you guys are saying, Marvel fans and Marvel boys, people like that, versus the DCites and things like that. But
only the extremists. Extremists.
Gotcha. With this, I think what people are forgetting when they watch and when the Marvel extremists talk about Marvel movies and Endgame and things like that, and comparative and contrast to DC, is we actually have gotten to grow with the characters. When you're reviewing Endgame, it's because you've been invested with those characters through a series of over 20 movies. You've got to learn those characters' ins and outs, their personas, the way they are, so you have a different expectation as a viewer going into something like Endgame, where you're like, it needs to be XYZ because we know these characters now. We've built a precedent. Where with DC and Justice League, they really haven't had that much growth in that way. You have to accept it now. This is who they are. This is what they are.
No, they tried to rush it. They completely
tried
to rush it.
And you're looking at it, yeah, and you're looking at it from a different review point, if that makes sense. It's someone who has history and then you get to review what they make versus not having history and having to accept what you see. So trying to compare the two, you can't compare the two. You really can't. There's no way of fairly doing it. Because of that. That makes sense. I don't know if I'm
well,
wrong.
I understand what you're saying. Sorry, go ahead, Rick.
No, I was going to say one of the things that Snyder did that Joss Whedon and DC didn't try to do when they had control of it after Snyder left, and one of the things that we saw that Snyder did with his whole movie was he gave us a lot of that backstory and a lot of that information in one movie, and that's something that no one has been able to do. Even Marvel wasn't able to do all of that in one movie, and that was a tough thing for him to do. One of the reasons why it was 4 hours long, but that wasn't easy to do. You know what I'm saying? He because it was funny because you're watching some of that movie and you're seeing Aquaman, and then you're remembering, wait, I've seen the Aquaman movie already, but you have to remember this was before the Aquaman movie.
Right.
You know, this is the first time you see Volko and Aquaman talking to Volko. This is the first time, and you know, so I had to remember that. Oh, this was before the Aquaman movie. So there's
Right.
things in this movie that he introduced before they got their solo movies.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So you know, it's just interesting to see his plan, like his actual plan, to help us get to a place where, like Graven is saying, Marvel was already at with all these character building and everything. He was trying to get us there. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and had they given him the opportunity, first off, it would have made, you know, we obviously would have seen that. Now everybody sees it. They're like, oh, well, yeah, Flash makes more sense now. And, you
Right.
know, Aquaman wasn't a dick. In the Josh Whedon version, he was a dick. Like, he
Yeah.
really was a kind of a dick, to be quite honest
Purposefully.
with you. Yeah, it didn't make
Yeah.
any sense why he was an asshole so much.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Right.
So it's just crazy, like, because, yeah, we had more time with Marvel. And you know, Snyder tried to rectify that. You know, he did a damn good job of it.
What I was gonna say, and I'm glad you made that point, Rick, because what's been happening is, you know, what you just laid out, Graven, is logic. It's fact, right? Like Marvel, you know, from the first podcast, Marvel had a better plan to release this and to, through a 10-year period, have us grow with these characters and understand these characters. Now, I don't think they did the best job of that because a lot of their movies are cookie cutter, and some of the characters, quite frankly, they turn into clowns, in my opinion, right? I would have liked to see more depth for a lot of the characters. However, it got us to Infinity War.
Right.
Infinity War, I think, was a masterpiece of a film. I think it
I
was
agree.
done very well,
I
right?
agree.
What I'm talking about is those extremists who, it doesn't matter what DC does, they already have an inherent bias.
Of course.
So if I think DC made the mistake of trying to fast track and catch up to Marvel. I think they made that mistake. What Zack Snyder was trying to do, and what Rick just laid out, is he tried to give us depth and, you know, the backgrounds of this in a shorter frame.
Mm-hmm.
While he was doing that, he still got criticized.
Yeah.
Okay, so in my opinion, it's like if you don't have a sense of integrity and you have that internal bias, you're not gonna be able to see beyond your bias.
I agree.
Man of Steel, I think, is my favorite superhero movie, right?
Mm.
But again, what he tried to lay out there is a Superman who is just coming to grips with his powers. He's still making mistakes. He's not the Christopher Reeves, you know, jolly guy that everybody wanted, you know, to see.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this was somebody who was, you know, unrefined, and he asked bigger questions in that movie. What would happen in a real modern day world if this guy really existed? Would they reject him? Would they accept him? How would we be able to handle that? There were religious themes in that movie, right? In terms of the savior versus, you know, the gods and the demons, you know.
Yeah.
So that if a guy like that showed up in our world, people would question their faith.
Oh, for sure.
What have we been told? You know, what have I accepted, right? So those bigger questions were asked. He got criticized for that movie. Oh, Superman isn't supposed to act like this. He's not supposed to do that. He's not supposed to get angry. He's not supposed to have human emotion, right? So what we didn't realize is Snyder was taking us on a journey of that character. That first movie was supposed to be an unrefined guy. You know, fast forward to Batman versus Superman, and then you have, you know, a little bit of growth there. And then fast forward to Justice League now, when he says, you know, I have a second chance at this. I'm not going to mess it up. And he's more comfortable in the character. He's more comfortable as Superman now, right? Because he's lived a life already as Superman, and now he gets to live a second life as Superman or whatever. Right. So, you know, again, there's real art in what Snyder was trying to do, and I think that for the most part, most logical and reasonable people could accept that. What I get upset with is, you know, and I've gone to rabbit hole of listening to so many other film reviews. And, you know, I give a credit to a lot of people who I know to be more on the Marvel side, who came out and they said, hey, I was wrong about Justice League. You know, I finally understand Snyder's vision right now. So I give credit to people like that because they're doing it with a sense of integrity. And I've seen that before. I've seen, several. But I've also seen on the other side of that, people come with these mundane reviews like, I mean, it was okay, but I just don't understand why Flash runs so funny. I mean, that could have been fixed. They're like, what are you talking about, man? You're nitpicking stuff that is irrelevant to the broader aspect of what's going on here.
Mm-hmm.
Some film reviewers that I highly respect, I've heard them say when Endgame came out, oh, I'm not going to nitpick this movie. But you have these other guys, they come out, they nitpick every little thing.
Double standards you're talking.
It's a double standard. They're a bunch of hypocrites. And if you're going to review something, review the director's decisions. Review, the things in the movie that don't fit, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you thought maybe could have been
plot
improved
holes,
or whatever.
Things like that.
Yeah, plot holes, things like that. But if you're just nitpicking stuff just for the sake of nitpicking, don't review the film, man. Don't review the film, because it does take, there's a lot of work and creativity that goes into these films that deserves some kind of respect.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, and that goes back to what Rick was asking me earlier about creating IPs and looking at that type of idea.
Exactly.
It's scary because I'm dealing with that right now, and I won't go into all the minutiae or details of things, but to open-ended it with, I even sit back and look at all the reviews of things and how movies are taken in nowadays, and the perspective of people and what they think and what they like, what they don't like, and I'm trying to apply that to my own creations as to say, what do I have to change now? What do I have to do different now? What do I have to look different at? What politically, religiously, ethnically, I have to look at all that when I'm creating all the stuff that I'm creating, and how am I going to put that on screen? And that happens a lot with these films where, they're having to do all these different changes to make things work, that unfortunately something gets changed that just has to get changed. It might not be something worth nitpicking, and it might not be what the director really wanted. And so sometimes they kind of go into this attack process, not really taking those things into consideration of what the movie really is, and to be thankful they actually had to see a chance to see the movie. Now, I'm not taking away the fact that there are some movies out there that are just lazy. There's movies that are just done lazy, they're done wrong.
Of course.
Yeah.
They're looked at wrong. I don't think every movie has to be praised so highly all the time. Let's look at everything for what it is. But in the same aspect, if it's just unwarranted and aggressive to no need, then that's a problem, I feel sometimes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And you can also I think like one of the things that we're getting to, and I know one of the things that I know Sean is getting to, because we've talked about it enough times, if you're going to take on the role of criticizing movies, if you're going to be a movie critic, if this is what you want to do, then there should be a certain ethical way of doing things. There should be a balance to the way you do these things. Unfortunately, it comes with the territory of YouTube. Everybody can have a channel. Everybody can have a voice.
Right.
So everybody can throw in their 2 cents on anything.
For sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
The problem remains when you got a lot of these people just throw. It's like it becomes an echo chamber of just voices,
right?
Of just voices being thrown, and then at that point, it's just, there are a lot of people that just kind of join into the bandwagon of things. They just go with the flow of what other people are saying,
and they sound the same. They sound the same. It's the same, like 3 or 4 criticisms.
There's a couple of movie critics that I know I watch. I know Sean watches them as well, and I know Graven, you probably know of a couple of them. But there's a couple like I said before in the last podcast we did, the right wing nerd surge. You got your conservative nerds who are speaking loud and proud right now, and right now in the YouTube sphere, they're the loudest speakers right now. The anyone else on the other side of the sphere right now, those guys are choosing not to say anything. You know what I'm saying? The guys that don't have conservative ideals are choosing not to speak. They're like most of those guys, they don't want to get involved. And that just ends up being the way it is on this side of the sphere. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I just don't want to get involved. I'm just going to act like it doesn't exist. I'm just going to critique this movie without thinking about all of this other stuff. It just doesn't work that way. You can't. The movies Which is funny because a lot of these, even the conservatives, always talk about, well, I just want to watch a movie. I don't want to be preached to, and I just want to watch a movie. There shouldn't be politics in my movies. Politics have always been in movies. It's always been the case. There's nothing new. You know what I'm saying? The movies have always adopted things that have gone on in real life.
Social commentary has always been a part of movies and film.
Nothing new. So to say that it's something new now is bullshit. And at the same time, it's like you have these other people on the other side who just act like, I'm just going to critique movies and not get involved in the social commentaries of today. You can't do that. You can't. Like, you can't fully critique a movie and think that you're not going to have to talk about the way that movie fits into the social commentary of today. You know what I'm saying? And you can't think that you can critique a movie and not think about talking about how that part of the reason why the movie has problems is because of the things it might have said or might not have said about the social commentary of today. You know what I'm saying? So that's the right-wing nerd surge. They're not afraid to talk. They're yelling, they're screaming, they're loud as fuck.
Right.
Everybody's listening to them right now. The other, the left side, they're quiet and they're just saying, I'm just not going to talk about these things. I'm just going to love a movie just cause, And that's the problem right now. It's like it's so unbalanced, unfortunately. On
Gotcha. There's no good middle ground.
What it comes down to, Rick, what you said, just to build on what you said, man, if you're going to fashion yourself as a movie critic, you're providing a service, essentially. You're providing a service to the public. And if you want to be taken seriously, intelligence matters. Skills matter when you're doing this. This is a skill. And, although nobody's perfect at this, you have to be at a certain level to understand the difference of things. So, yes, Graven said, there are some horrible movies made. There's some simplistic movies, and there's some movies that are more dynamic. They tell a deeper story. If you sit down and watch Goodfellas and, Mobsters, that 1991 movie with, I think it's Christian Slater, you have to be willing to understand that Goodfellas is a superior movie to Mobsters, okay? You might like Mobsters more than Goodfellas, but if you want to be taken seriously at this, you have to be willing to understand why Goodfellas constructively is a better movie than Mobsters, even though Mobsters is more enjoyable for you to watch. I'm not a fan of the horror genre. I've seen my share of horror movies, right? You have some people that binge that stuff, but I've sat and watched. It was a movie called Hereditary. Now, listen. Again, I will never watch this movie again. Okay, because
Yeah, Graven's probably seen it a couple times.
Yeah, I don't need that imagery in my life.
Actually,
right?
I haven't, believe it or not.
That's interesting.
We know who has.
Well, I think Blumhouse, I'll use two movies, The Witch and Hereditary, right? Brilliant movies. As far as horror movies go, like, I'll never see them again. I'll never watch them again. But the way they were constructed, right, were two of the best horror movies I've ever seen, okay? Not that I, and I enjoyed some aspects of it, but I'm not going to set an afternoon where I binge those two movies again, okay? So you have to get back to integrity. Skills and intelligence matter when you're doing this. And a lot of these guys only could hold two thoughts in their head at one time, right? And they're trying to come, and what angers me is that some of them are monetizing this. And they just sound stupid. Some of their criticisms just sound silly. Okay, I'm going to get into some of the hypocrisy later because you know me. I did some research and I have a little list that I want to go through. I'll get into that later.
Yeah, you can go right in there now. You ain't got to hold on. Go on.
Since we're on it.
Yeah, go
all right.
Full contact geek speak, bro.
Yeah, go for it.
Well, this is the Bloody Nerd, so we got to go at it, right?
Yeah, might as well.
The main criticism I've heard is the movie is too long. Okay.
Yeah.
And how come he didn't cut some of the movie or whatever? All right. First of all, Zack Snyder didn't know if none of us know if there's going to be more to this. All right. The fact that, and we already talked about this, how this movie got made was pretty much a miracle. Why would you cut back your full vision? You might as well give the people everything. This is what I was trying to do. It makes no sense to cut any of this, okay?
No.
Not to mention the fact that it was done in 7 parts, okay? Sort of like a miniseries. If you're going to complain about the runtime, the way the movie was segmented, again, on my second viewing, I watched it in 2 nights, right? I watched parts 1, 2, and 3, and then I watched 4, 5, 6, 7 the second night. You could parse that out how you want to. Watch 2 Monday, 2 Tuesday, and so forth, right? Listen, again, I did a little bit of research here. If any of you guys sat and binge watched the first season of Mandalorian, that was 5 hours and 23 minutes total, okay? 5 hours, all right? If you, and I know some of them too, they sat and they watched Infinity War back to back with Endgame. If you've done that, you've sat and watched 5 hours and 37 minutes of 2 movies, okay? I'll even give you another example. If you've binge watched Stranger Things, because each individual episode is about 40 minutes. If you binge watch the first season of Stranger Things, that's 6 hours and 3.5 minutes. You sound stupid when you're complaining about a 4-hour runtime, okay? Number one. Number two, I touched on this before, the Flash running. I've heard this. Oh, how come he didn't fix the Flash running? Listen, again, if you're not creative enough to hold 2 thoughts in your head at one time, you're not going to get that Zack Snyder, he tried to add something different to the Speed Force so that people could recognize that it's not just running fast like previous Flashes. He added something extra to the Flash's character.
Yeah, him and Ezra.
Okay? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right? The other complaint that I heard of is, oh, Lois Lane, her role, she was just mourning Superman. Are you joking or what? Like, Lois Lane is the human connection to make sure that Superman doesn't turn into Brightburn. Okay?
Yeah.
That's what Lois Lane's purpose of that movie was. And the fact that, again, there was real emotion and the characters were a lot more fleshed out in this movie. And Lois's loss, we had to go through that journey with her, from her we know Lois Lane, we've seen this character so many times. The one thing she is passionate about is her job and her journalism. She's always getting into trouble. She's always trying to get to the bottom of the story. She gave that up because she's still in mourning the loss of Clark Kent, right? So we went on that journey with her. And at the end, to say that she was just mourning him the whole time is ridiculous, because honestly, she saved Batman's life.
No, she saved a lot of people's lives, yeah.
She saved a lot of people's lives, right? But
yeah.
but in that moment when she popped back up, she saved his life, right? The other criticism I heard, and this is the last one that I just really wanted to address, is, oh, there were 20 minutes at the end of the movie that just went on and on. First of all, it wasn't 20 minutes, okay? In most of the Marvel movies, we have end credit scenes that everybody goes crazy over. Okay? The difference here, and I've seen certain Marvel movies that have 2 end credit scenes. The only difference here is this one has 3. Okay? Essentially, Lex Luthor gets out of jail and he has a conversation with Deathstroke. That's the first one. The second one is
the Nightmare.
The end of the world. The Nightmare end scene with Batman and the Joker. They get into it.
Yeah.
All right. And then the last one was with Martian Manhunter at the end. Okay. The only difference in how that was laid out was Part 7, the epilogue. It just kept going. There was no end credits, and then they introduced you to those 3 scenes. That's the only difference. So did you guys need a break? Did you need to see the credits before you saw the end scene? The 3 end credit scenes? Is that what it was? He just attached them to the end. That's it. So a lot of these criticisms are foolish. Okay? And if you're gonna nitpick stuff like that, right? Then you just look like a hypocrite and a moron, in my opinion. Especially if you're complaining about the runtime of 4 hours. Because I know a lot of these these Marvel sweaties, like they sit there and they binge watch a whole afternoon and stuff.
Easy. And the other thing about the Lois thing is, not only do we go on her journey of mourning him, but we have to also remember, now being able to look back, she wasn't just mourning Clark, she was mourning him being pregnant. She was pregnant.
That was a big aspect of it, right?
You know what I'm saying? We didn't realize that until that scene, and even when we saw the scene
she pulled out the drawer.
We still didn't realize it until the very end. You know what I'm saying? When Bruce says congratulations, we see her with the little bassinet. So not only is she mourning this man that she loved, but she's mourning him knowing that she's carrying his baby.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I mean, there's a lot going on there. It's like, again, this the thing that I've talked with Sean about as well. The thing about Snyder is that every character you see on his screen, he gives a story arc to. Almost every character, even Clark's mother had a story arc. She went from living on the farm to going into foreclosure. She had to move into a little apartment, and you know what I'm saying. Like, she even had her own little thing going on. Every character he puts on the screen has some kind of story arc. You know what I'm saying, and he does it with every one of his movies.
And that's the thing. That's the thing too, Rick. Like, listen, if you don't understand everything on all the director's decisions, be intellectually curious enough to ask the right questions.
Oh, of course.
Because I've been guilty of this too. And we've had these discussions about his choice of Lex Luthor in Batman v Superman. Now, again, I know there's a reason why he chose that type of character as Lex Luthor.
He had a story arc as well.
He had a story arc as well, different than the one we're used to seeing.
Oh yeah.
You know, we're used to seeing like Gene Hackman and Kevin Spacey as Lex Luthor,
I
right?
think that's what he was trying to mimic. I think he was trying to mimic
a little bit,
that Gene Hackman weirdness. Gene Hackman was a weird, goofy guy. He had
a little quirky.
He had the quirky sidekick. I think he was trying to mimic that weird energy with this guy. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying it played well. You know what I'm saying? But I think that's what he was trying to do. You know what I'm saying? But again, I know where Sean is going again is even this guy had his own story arc. The character you see, you know, and Justice League at the end is not the same guy you saw in BVS.
It's not. And honestly, I was pleasantly surprised when I saw his growth. And, you know, again, it hit me again. Like, this dude has a longer arcing version of these characters, you know. But I'm still not too crazy about watching Lex Luthor's character in BVS. Like, I tell you this all the time. You know, I like the movie, but when he's on there, man, I fast forward because it's kind of painful for me to watch with all his little quirks and everything like that. To me, it takes away from the movie. I think that's a criticism I have, that I think he put a little too much weirdness into the character, for my taste anyway. But just because I didn't necessarily fully appreciated that, you have to ask the question why. Okay? Why did he choose this character? And then you can go on to have a better discussion about it. Right?
Yeah, and asking the question why you get some of the answer when you see Justice League.
Exactly.
You know, because we've been asking the question why for years now. You know, after seeing BVS, why did he choose this guy? Doesn't make any fucking sense. Why did he choose this guy? When you see BVS, you're like, oh, there's an arc there. When Luthor goes through what he goes through and gets put into Arkham, and then when he breaks out, he's a different dude. Like, something happened to him, and he's got more composure. He's more menacing. You know what I'm saying? And he's put together. And it's and, you know, I'm almost pissed off to not see more of where he wants to go.
See more of what that's going to go. Yeah, the way that's going to go.
You know,
well,
like, go ahead.
He made him scarier.
Yeah,
absolutely.
He made him scarier. He shows up more scary in all approach to what he is in the last little bit of it. I mean, I'll be honest, in Batman BVS, to begin with, when I first watched it, I honestly really didn't care for it. And I'm not even trying to degrade everything that was in it, because there were things I did enjoy. I just, as a whole, it felt off to me in certain areas. But when they and let me say this, going into the fact that a lot of the criticisms people are saying about this Justice League debacle, where what we saw with Josh's vision and then what we see with Snyder's vision is so different, and not being able to put any stock in what Snyder can actually do as a director. Now, mind you, there's been a few Snyder movies that I've not been a fan of, and to be quite honest with you, there's a few that are out there that I haven't really been a big fan of, and made me question why. But here's the smoking gun, so to speak. When I watched Batman versus Superman, and I took those certain things to heart about what I saw to begin with, and then I go and they release the director's cut of it. And you see the director's cut versus what was originally put out in the theaters.
Right.
It's two different films.
Absolutely.
Completely.
Yeah.
And I was almost insulted as a viewer.
Yeah.
Because the same thing that just happened with, and I'm not going to say same because we know it's different, but if you think about it in theory, it's the same thing that just happened with Justice League.
Absolutely.
So you get to see a film that I wasn't really hugely adoring on, and then I see the director's cut, and I was talking to Rick about this. I'm like, damn, why didn't we get that movie? Like, why did not we get that movie? That movie was so great in a lot of areas of beefing up the level of depth with the characters, why their motivations were what they were, what he was doing. There was so much missing. Even if it was a small amount, it was missing enough to throw off the feel, direction that would catapulted the story and the movie into what was going on with Justice League. And when I saw it again, I was like, you know what? I actually enjoy watching this now. I actually I understand it. I kind of understand the pieces. So at that point, people who were trolling Snyder should have sat back and said, look, he's already showed you what he was doing with that. You should just expect that the new Justice League that he's doing may be more, a breath of more information and more strong storytelling than what we got on the cutting room floor of what Josh was doing. And that's what's happened here. Yeah. People don't think about that.
I just want to make it clear, too, from my point of view. I'm a fan of Marvel and DC.
Me too.
I want both of these houses to succeed, right? Captain America: Winter Soldier, one of my favorite superhero movies ever.
I agree.
Infinity War, I thought Infinity War was brilliant. The first Iron Man was one of my favorite superhero movies ever.
Agreed.
I think all but maybe 2 of the 22 films in the MCU, 10-year period, all but 2 I saw in the movie theater. Right? So I'm definitely a fan of Marvel as well. But I feel like I have to defend DC to a certain point, because some of these extremists are really annoying. They're getting annoying, right? And that's the reason why I really wanted to kind of put some of these things to light. Because, look, there are some valid criticisms with Snyder's movies, some of his decisions. And, yeah, you're not going to be a fan of everything, right? But you have to understand precedent and give enough latitude for this vision to be realized. I saw a commentary that was very useful to me, where it says that there are some directors filmmakers who make popcorn movies, movies that they don't take themselves too seriously, they're very lighthearted, and there are other directors, they're trying to make artful films.
Right.
Okay? There are deeper meanings to those films and stuff like that. And I think for the most part, the reason that, again, people haven't fully appreciated what Snyder is trying to do specifically to the DCEU is because Marvel came out first. And Jon Favreau set the tone with that first Iron Man movie. Favreau set the tone for what the MCEU was going to bring you. It was colorful. It was funny. It was quirky. The action was ridiculous, right? And it didn't take itself too seriously. And everybody from that point on, when DC started theirs, they were like, well, how come DC isn't doing what Marvel is doing? This is what, we've gotten so used to and spoiled with the MCEU. How come the DC isn't doing that? But guess what? DC attempted to do that with the Justice League version. Essentially, the Justice League version is sort of a Marvel take on the Justice League. You have the director of the first Avengers movie.
Yeah. As
right?
close as you're going to get, yeah.
As close as you're going to get. And they still didn't like it.
No.
Right?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of things coming in the realm with that film that a lot of assets in the way he was looking at things differently as a director coming off of Age of Ultron that I think also affected a lot of what he was doing with this. And I think there was too many hands in the pot with what they were trying to manipulate with what that Justice League was supposed to be.
Absolutely.
And I think that's where it hurt everything. I don't think it couldn't have been closer to. I mean, I know I get in a little bit of arguments with this from some people, I'm sure, but I feel like what Marvel is technically what DC should have been, and what DC is technically what Marvel should have been. Because the reality is that Marvel is a darker universe than DC.
When it comes to the comic books, yeah.
When it comes to
the comic book universe, right?
So, and I think people miss a lot of that. They don't understand that. The average viewer, and they shouldn't, because the average viewer is just watching the movies,
Right.
But that's really what's been off. And then when Nolan brought his vision to things, it kind of went down this little click of a keyhole, rabbit hole type situation of like, hey, we can ground these, do these a little darker. Let's just go ahead. And everyone loved it, so let's just go ahead and go all in. And that's where DC kind of, I think that was a turning point when DC said, let's just go all into this darker universe. Where in reality, Batman is that darkness of DC. That is the darkness of DC.
Absolutely.
And everything else kind of either can be enveloped by that, all these other characters can be enveloped by that, or they can shine through to kind of cloud out that a little bit, depending on how you frame the stories. And that's what's happening here. You're seeing a lot of that dynamic change, and that's why it's so serious in tone. But then when you get to Josh Whedon, Justice League, or like you guys are saying, the Justice League, it's why it was kind of staggering. Because you're seeing him go and do this different thing that's not what people were expecting to begin with.
You know what this reminds me of? I mean, if you really want to take back the conversation to 1989 Batman, right? With Tim Burton's vision. Right. Tim Burton had, I think it was a 3-film vision also, right?
Yeah.
He turned out he only did 2. But the 1989 Batman set the tone for all of this stuff. I don't care what anybody says, right? The summer superhero blockbuster film, that precedent was set with that one film. And Burton had his own vision. And then 2 movies in, he decided to step away because, again, creative differences with the studio or whatever. Joel Schumacher came in. And he tried to kind of do exactly what Josh Whedon did, which was take aspects of Burton's vision, but also try to make it more colorful and more quirky and more funny. And it crashed and burned. Fast forward to Christopher Nolan when they wanted to reboot the franchise. And Nolan said, I'm going to add my vision to this, which is more of a realistic, vision. Tim Burton's vision was more in a fantasy world kind of thing. Nolan came along and said, I'm going to ground this more in reality, right? And look what we got. The Nolan films weren't, again, it wasn't perfect, but again, that trilogy of films, were masterfully done. There are some solid criticisms of, Dark Knight Rises. There's some criticism of Batman Begins, but you can't deny the quality of those films.
Well, that's another trilogy of movies that didn't get to see its full potential because of a tragedy.
Yeah.
Christopher Nolan's full idea of what he wanted to do had to be revamped when Ledger died. And
that's right.
And Dark Knight Rises had to be changed.
Right. Absolutely.
So things altered his vision. You know what I'm saying? So we don't know what his full vision would have looked like completely.
Right. Is it weird that there's tragedy has hit the DC films with like that being stated, as well as the loss of Zack Snyder's daughter, Autumn, and the creative process that's affected these films versus Marvel, when we really haven't heard any type of unfortunate, unless I'm missing something other than Stan Lee passing, of course, which was tragic, very tragic. That affected the cameo process of what he was doing in those films. But we never really saw kind of a bump in the road, so to speak. And again, I could be wrong.
Yeah.
With the Marvel films, we're seeing them only with DC, and I don't know if that's has to do with that's me and the universal understanding of things. It seems kind of odd.
Yeah, you start talking about energy and stuff. Yeah, you start talking about energy. I mean, who knows, man? Because I mean, Snyder is from Nolan's camp. Snyder graduated from the camp of Christopher Nolan, so he was his director of photography, if I'm correct. So who's to say that these 2 guys walked the same path for a long time, and the tragedy in Dark Knight, the movies wasn't specific to Nolan's life, like it wasn't his family member. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But there was a tragedy nonetheless while making those movies. So
absolutely.
I mean, that's an interesting thing to think of. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. That's it's different. But yeah, I mean, my like you said originally, the differences between the Marvel and the DC universes versus the comic universes is interesting. They definitely flip-flopped. I don't think it's a bad thing in the sense that once Marvel set their tone, it made sense that DC had to set its own.
I understand.
It couldn't just follow suit. You know what I'm saying? So it had to do something. Finding Zack Snyder and using his thoughts on things. And Snyder just took Nolan's thoughts, and Snyder added I feel like even though Snyder took everything to like with Man of Steel, it was a real world essence to Man of Steel. I also feel like Snyder was able to add in the fantasy back into the real world aspect of it. It's weird. He's got this weird real world fantasy thing going on.
Right.
Even though it's real world, it's still got a little bit of the fantasy thing. You see it more once you get to Justice League, to be honest with you.
Well, his scale is larger too.
Yeah,
right?
That's one thing about his movies. His scale is always massive. Like his scale is definitely massive.
I mean, you're dealing with Atlantis.
Yeah.
You're dealing with Themyscira. Now you're dealing with galactic forces and enemies too. So, the scale is definitely a lot larger too. So you kind of have to put in that element of it, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think he's a great person to do that. One thing you can't say anything negative about when it comes to Snyder is his scale. Like he the things he does visually. That's the one thing. I mean, that's why he was the director of photography. Visually, the man, what he does is beautiful. Like his visualization of things is amazing.
Yeah. I mean, technically, everything he creates is an art film. Every film is an art film. It's come from that point of view, and some people may not like that, and that's fine. And there's certain times where I think it's a little too much, but I understand it. I'm not beating it down because I don't want to see it. I understand it. I understand the methodology behind it. A lot of people don't do that. They just kind of blatantly just go across the board and judge it straight and narrow. And as going back to what you were talking about earlier about the 4-hour idea, you made a lot of good points with like people watching this movie and it being so long. I think it's sad that we're in that point where we can't watch 4 hours worth of a movie and justify it. We can, like what you said in The Mandalorian and things like that, and we're in the binge culture, but in the same aspect there's this double-sided situation where everyone can't seem to sit down and just enjoy something. It's got to be a reason why they can't do that, and I think that's speaks volumes to society's availability to understand knowledge, grow it, and learn from things. We've lost that. It's all rush, and no one's just really sat down to actually enjoy something, look at the depth of what it is, and that's, I think it's kind of hysterical. You know what I mean? That we're in that point. A movie is a movie. I think a movie should be as long as it should be, based on the vision of the director and the creators that are involved. It should be just as long as it needs to be. And if that means there's a movie that's hundreds of hours long, days, weeks long, then let that be what it is, because it's a creative capsule. That's what it is. That's what it's meant to be. And then let the viewers have the choice to watch or not watch based on that. But I don't think it should always be effective on these little boxes we put the films in. It only has to be an hour in this, or 30 minutes on this. It's too much. I don't know if you guys agree with me, but I think it's let the viewers make that choice.
Absolutely agree with you.
No, I think it does suck if you're somebody that says, I have a vision, I've worked it out, I've fully worked it out in my brain. It'll be a 3.5 or 3 hour, 40 minute or 4 hour long movie. And then the production company says, no, it needs to be 2 hours. You know what I'm saying? It's like, what? So I got to cut out 2 hours worth of my vision? Like, how am I going to do that? It's like, that makes no sense. So now I got to go and bastardize my vision and hope that it's going to make sense to people. And that happens probably more than we think. More than I know about.
Well, that's why there's always a director's cut, right? There's a director's cut, or some extended version of the movie.
Yeah, if you're lucky. Because remember, Kathleen Kennedy cut out the director's cut of the Last Jedi because she didn't want people to see what she cut out of the movie. Right. So she didn't give us a director's version of the Last Jedi.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that.
Yeah, because she didn't want people to see what she had them cut out of the movie.
Yeah.
She should have just cut the movie.
Dude, she should have just cut the movie, period.
Should have just cut the movie and stepped out of the way. That's what she should have done.
Yeah. I think we as humans, it kind of makes us look inherently inferior to believe that we can't sit down and just watch films. We can't watch creativity. We have to just be put in this box. It's, I think that's sad on that level. Now, mind you, I understand that we also, setting aside wants and what we would like versus the reality of how the movie industry works. I'm fully aware how it works, and the number game and finances and how things need to be and focus groups, and I get that. And I know that anyone in those camps can justify why a movie needs to be financially an hour and a half, 2 hours. It can't be this. It can't be. I get that.
Yeah, when it comes to movie theaters, is what it is. Yeah.
You know, we get that. We understand that. But it doesn't change the fact that it is sad that we as a culture can't sit down and actually enjoy these things anymore. And we have to push through things so much. And people, if you're going to complain, that's your choice. It's your choice. You can complain. Don't watch it. You're welcome to turn it off. Don't go see it. That's fine. But, you know, I felt like that happened a lot with the Lord of the Rings stuff. You know, I mean, I've watched the extended editions. I'm a big fan of those things, too. They changed a lot from the book as well. So I understand the critiques of that. I've read the books. I know that. I
that's
can
over.
both sides.
Those movies are over. Like, if you watch the 3 of those, that's over 9 hours of film, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the Hobbit film series as well.
Yeah.
Close to it.
I mean, I just thought of the Harry Potter series. How many films is that? Was that
7?
7 movies? 7 movies, right?
Yeah.
The last movie was broken up into 2 parts.
Right.
So I mean, you could calculate, you know, how much film that is. But again, one collective vision, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll say this real quick. And Sean knows this. We had a roommate at one point, young kid, and he said this, and this will stick in my head for a long time because I think it was so relevant. And he literally, because he fancied himself a cinephile, and he loved movies. When all he really liked was to watch horror movies, but he fancied himself a cinephile. But he literally said that he didn't like movies that made him think. And this is like an 18-year-old kid. And I feel like this to me says a lot about a lot of kids his age nowadays. You know, a lot of kids from 18 to early 20s or whatever, you know, he literally said, I don't like movies that make me think. I just want to watch a movie. I don't want to think about anything. You know what I'm saying? And that just was like, it blew my mind. Like, it was like, okay, I get it. But at the same time, really? You know, like, wow. Like, that says a lot. So for a movie to be 4 hours long, I think it takes too much for a lot of these younger people to really sit and put their get into. Like, you're asking too much of them.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's what's happening, and that's all been trained based on upbringing of our society and what shows do, what YouTube does, all those types of things. It's all trained.
I mean, listen. All 3 of us come from the 80s. So, but at the same time, I've had this conversation with both of you. I'm already fed up with having to wait to watch my shows. Like, I don't like watching shows every week anymore. I'd rather you give me a show and let me binge watch it. I hate having to wait every week to watch an episode of a show. So, what you said is true. Over the years, we've all been kind of programmed to get into this binge culture. And that's kind of where everything is I want all of it now, and I want to consume it quickly. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, like Sean said, the difference with the Batman or with the Justice League is that you could have easily watched 2 hours, and you could have took your ass to sleep, and came back and watched 2 more hours, and took your ass to sleep. You know what I'm saying? Like, you didn't have to sit there and watch it all for all 4 hours. No one was taking that shit away from you if you didn't watch it all in one sitting.
True.
You know, so to use that as a complaint is ridiculous. It's seriously
it's nonsense. It's straight nonsense, man.
Yeah, it's not like he was putting in a movie theater. It wasn't in a movie theater. So
Yeah, no, I agree. And I also didn't know if you guys want to talk about some of the things you liked about the film, or things that you didn't like about the film, or anything like that as far as the general story.
Absolutely. We're doing it ass backwards today. Like we're addressing all the social
commentary,
all the social issues and commentary, and then we'll give our film review afterwards, right?
Hey, whatever works.
What I liked about the movie, again, I got my little list here, so bear with me.
Yeah.
I like the fact that Rick mentioned something earlier about scale and, the fantastical elements of this. I love the fact that the superheroes' powers, you saw them in full esteem, right? One issue I have about Marvel, solid criticism I have about Marvel is they play down the ability of their characters' powers, right? I don't know if it's because they're trying to make them more relatable or whatever. The fact of the matter is these characters aren't really relatable.
They're not supposed to be.
They exist in a world where they're not supposed to be relatable. I mean, Wonder Woman is half God, okay? I like what they did with the Aquaman character, but also Flash really got redeemed in this movie because he wasn't just a clown and, the comedy sidekick in the first one. You really saw his relevance and how powerful he is If it wasn't for him, again, they actually lost.
Yeah, they lost.
They lost. Flash was the correction at the last minute, right? I also think that, so one is the superpower, the superhero powers. They were on full display. I love that. The second thing was Wonder Woman was also revalidated from 1984.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Her scenes to me really stood out. She was a warrior. She was the character she was supposed to be. And again, Zack Snyder's vision of Wonder Woman, this is his vision. He was the one who casted her for BVS, and he rewrote the script on Wonder Woman. So to see her, again, realized in her true essence and her true power was great to see, right? I also feel like the dialogue between the characters was more meaningful. It was a lot more meaningful. Every scene where the characters had an exchange, it showed you the growth of the character, but also where they were in that film. You had a sense that there was this looming danger, and they had to, get ready for that. And in certain scenes, you can tell that they weren't ready for it. They didn't understand the full breadth of that, or, they knew they were up against something that it was going to take all of them, that they probably weren't going to succeed at it. So I just felt the dialogue was so much better, and nobody was really a clown. But there were times when there were funny moments where the comedy worked, right? I feel like Steppenwolf had much depth. He was more intimidating. I didn't realize dude had 7 fingers. That kind of threw me back when he had 7. He opened up his hand with the spider thing. That kind of threw me. Yeah. Steppenwolf, honestly, I mean, he was a G in this movie compared to the first one, man. I mean, the first mother box he took, that scene where, they, the fortress that they had the first mother box in, it fell off the cliff, and he came right back out, and he started bodying horses, and just all the Amazon warriors, man. That was crazy. The second mother box he took, he said, I'm gonna go and do this for Dolo. He went in there by himself and took it from the Atlanteans, right? I mean, Rick brought this to my attention on the second viewing I saw, but what's her name? Amber Heard's Mira almost bodied him.
Yeah, she almost got him.
You saw blood and water coming, all the moisture coming out of his body. But again, once he threw her down, he almost bodied her, until Aquaman showed up. So there was real high stakes in those action scenes where I felt like the characters, at some point, they were in danger. And that's good storytelling when you're wondering, how are they going to get out of this? I think that was it. I think for the most part, that's what I loved about the movie. I think again, the pacing was good, and I love the fact that it was broken up into 7 parts. That made it seems like every part had its own sort of storyline to it that connected it to the next one, right? So I love that part about it.
Okay.
What about you, Rick?
What I liked about it, man. I mean, I loved the whole movie. I loved Themyscira. This is one of those moments again when we talk about a lot of the media hype, and you have a lot of the feminists who say that we as men don't want to see strong females in our movies, and we even had what's her face, the director of the
Patty Jenkins.
No, the director of the Charlie's Angels movie, the second one.
Okay.
Elizabeth Banks,
who had the nerve to say that, hero movies don't count because guys like their females in hero movies. So those movies don't count, For me, I thought the Themyscira scene was amazing. I thought it was dope. It was so much fun to watch. It actually amped me up, when that scene he drops in, like Sean said. And not only does he just, the fact that he drops in, but he drops in and he's just massive. Like he's just everything they did with him was just so freaking massive, and it was just dope that they didn't. There was like the whole no fear thing. Well, we don't fear this nigga. We're gonna go at
Right.
him. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I loved
Yeah.
every moment of that. Like I was like, yo, this is awesome. You know, the scene where they're shooting him with all the arrows, and he uses his armor to clear the
Just-
arrows off his body.
Oh man.
That's what I
Dude.
would do. That's what I would do with the character, man.
I was like, oh,
I was
my
all on.
Yeah, he was ferocious, man.
Yo,
He
this
was
is
ferocious.
crazy because you see his armor moving all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they have blades on it and stuff, and I'm like, what is
Right.
going on with that? So then the moment he did that, it made sense. It's like the armor just shed everything. It was. I mean, that whole beginning with him and Themyscira was really freaking dope. I love that whole scene. And then from what I remember, there was talks about them getting their own movie. The Themyscirans getting their own movie.
I hope so.
So-
Because even in 1984, that intro scene at Themyscira, that's the part of the movie I enjoyed the most. That was the dopest part of the movie.
Yeah, so I mean I love of course the Flash. I love what they did with the Flash. I wasn't wholeheartedly feeling him in the first Justice League version, and that's horrible because I'm a huge Flash fan. I was telling Sean one of the things about this movie is you get a sense of how powerful he is, and Graven will understand me from being a comic book head. A lot of people don't realize how powerful the Flash is. Like the Flash's powers are serious, man. You know what I'm saying? Like what this dude can do is a lot of times a lot of comics don't get into his powers or how crazy his powers can be. You know, and you see them dumbing down the Flash a lot. You know, a lot of times he's dumbed down to just being running around quickly and doing things.
Right.
Unfortunately, yeah.
The full breadth of this man's powers is just ridiculous. So what they did in this movie, you know, and this takes me to another thing that I posted on the Geek page today, which I don't know if you guys had a chance to see this. Some person, I think it was the comic book CBR, the CBR.com, the comic book something.com, posted this article about the scene where he saves Iris, and saying that scene was toxic. It was complete toxic male toxicity because he invaded her space by saving her. You know, the fact that he saved her and brushed her hair aside, you know, was an invasion of her space, and it was, you know, was full of male toxicness or whatever. Again, you know, this is just the media and how one side of this echo chamber that we talk about is screaming the loudest right now, and the other side is not screaming loud enough. You know what I'm saying? For me, that scene was awesome. The fact that the fact that in the middle of saving her, he had the thought to grab the hot dog. We had no idea why he was grabbing the hot dog.
Right.
I even thought, why is he grabbing the hot dog and putting it in his pocket?
Yeah.
And in the very next scene, you see him using the hot dog with the dogs. So you know, which is another power that has been talked about in the comic books. Not only is he fast, but he has super thought. Like he can think faster than other people. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that to me was awesome. I mean, the end scene where he saves everybody, the way they made that scene was breathtaking. How he ran everything back into existence was breathtaking. You know, so and of course, my last thing would be the way they brought Superman back in was so much better than the Josh version. I'm a fan of truth and justice, justice and truth. You know, the Josh version, I always hated that scene where he came back in with that. It always bothered me. So the way they brought him back in this version, I liked it better as well. Much better than the other version. But yeah, that's me. I'll go in there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things that I was able to look at this differently with from the first one, and things that I enjoyed. A lot of what you guys have touched base on, I enjoyed and I appreciated. It also is weird. It makes you realize how much that was cut from the original one. Like, you almost want to think, why? Why was it cut? Because the stuff that was still in there that was brought into it with what we saw with this is just amazing. Like, things I enjoyed about it. Number one, like you said, the Amazonians, Wonder Woman, that scene with the hostage situation.
Oh yeah,
phenomenal. Can we not get more of this? Okay, this is what Wonder Woman is. Okay, strong female, suspend disbelief as far as reality and grounded. Let's just give us what we have here. So this woman,
and also,
go ahead.
Sorry to cut you off, Greg.
No,
but also the inspiration she provided to the schoolgirls that were there, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, people were arguing about how violent she was. Let her be violent. Do you think that an Amazonian's not going to be violent? They're going to be violent. They build this all up to let you know this. It's not a surprise. And it's not a surprise. She's supposed to be aggressive. They're supposed to, you can even argue the whole thing that Amazonians have to be stronger to deal with a male world. Whatever you want to say. But we got it. And what we got in 1984 was atrocious compared to what this Wonder Woman is. I'm sorry. My wife says it all the time. Maybe she's not part of the norm, but she wants to see that Wonder Woman. There's been some jury out where a lot of women, even Patty Jenkins says that women don't want to see that type of Wonder Woman, that type of build and feel and look and strength. Yeah. No, my wife is one of a few that I know very, very regularly that said that's what I like. That's what I want to see. I want to see a female get dirty and get angry and fight and be able to hold her own. I want to see that. That's what empowers the whole situation. It's not about how effeminate I think that we can show ourselves, and that's what she said. It's about how strong we can show ourselves in this world of men, and that's what Wonder Woman did in this, and I was clapping the whole time. It was awesome. And what they did comparison to Josh's version was just horrible. Like, you took everything that made that character great out of that scene for your movie. It's inexplicably stupid to do. So I love the Wonder Woman stuff. The Themyscira, Steppenwolf. My goodness, man. This character was a buffoon in the original Justice League. A buffoon. Yeah. And now, mind you, I'll be honest, I can be open with everything and say, hey, these are Jack Kirby characters. These are characters that were created by the famous Jack Kirby, the New Gods. Yes, they do not look exactly the way their comic counterparts do. I get it, and I understand that. And I would have loved to see that, for sure. But we're already saying that we're seeing different things for a reason. It's a different version. It's a different vision. So I already know this. I look at this like an Elseworld. I look at this like an Elseworld Justice League. We've got some difference here. We're mixing it up a little bit. But to take that character, that whatever we got in Justice League, the first part of it, to this was spectacular. You feel for him. You worry for him. You feel his pain. He just wants to be accepted. Not to mention, this is Darkseid's uncle, okay? Yeah. This isn't just some lackey that's working under Darkseid. This is his uncle. And that's a weird family dynamic that people don't realize. So here he is being cast out. He just wants redemption. What better arc for a villain to come to that world and deal with it? He wants redemption. He's been doing this for so long, and now he needs to show people and his family that he can do this. You know what I mean? You felt for him. I don't know if you guys did. I felt for him. Like,
there was a point where actually maybe I wanted him to succeed a little bit, just so he could redeem himself. Yeah.
And it just goes back to the point that what happened at the end of it. It was tragic. Like, to him to go through all that, and he still just dies. And the way he dies, phenomenal action scene, great play, it all kind of crescendos.
So much better than the other version, the way he dies.
Yeah. But, the one that we got before was this real creepy... You want to talk about male toxicity? That's what we got in the first one. That weirdness, that creepiness that he had in that first Justice League of what Steppenwolf created himself, how he acted, how he spoke. In this one, it was no holds bar, man. I'm out. When he took them horses, he just went all in on Themyscira.
All 6 of them.
My goodness. Yeah, man. Like, that's what we need. But yeah, I could talk all day. I think it was a great character. His armor was phenomenal. I love the fact that, and I don't know if this is true, so don't quote me, but I'm just reaching as a fan here. I love that they brought Starro kind of into it when that little creature came down his leg, and it's a little Starro-looking type creature, and to pull from his mind.
Yes. Definitely fan service right
great
there.
Great little nod there to those characters because, that lets you think how big Darkseid's reign is. Right. He's just conquered the universe, that they have this tech that it just bends to their will. It's not even a Starro themselves. It's just they've utilized that. So I thought it was cool.
Yeah, which makes complete sense because supposedly we're going to see those. And I think there's a photo of potential Starros and
Starro's in Suicide Squad. Yeah, he's in it. Yeah, he's in it. You can see it in the trailer. He's in it. So that's going to be interesting. So there's that. I don't think we've talked about this. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but what a travesty of not having Cyborg handled like he was in this one.
Cyborg.
This story, Cyborg was the heart, along with Flash, was the heart of this movie, and I loved what they did with him. I think that it's redeeming to such a level that this story kind of builds on that. I love what happened with his father. I love the way that I don't know. It's just a lot to talk about with that, but I really love what they did with Cyborg. I think that it's infuriating that they threw it all away on the cutting room floor to begin with. That says a lot. On top of all these investigations going on. Little foundation there to say something was going on. Sorry.
But you also you understood the character more. It's just like Aquaman in the first one. I didn't understand why he was such a dick, and it's with Cyborg, I didn't understand why he was so angry. Right. That wasn't flushed out enough. In this one, you got it. You got why he was angry, but he was still protective over his father. When he lost his father, he was distraught about that. So as angry as he was, again, the character arc of him was phenomenal.
Yes, and the thing of it is a lot of people were trolling, saying about how Ray Fisher can't act or that his acting was horrible or flat. It's supposed to be. He's a cyborg. He's a robot. His heart got pulled from him. His emotion, his life got decimated.
Yeah, I still didn't see any of that, though. I didn't see any of that.
I still didn't see any of that.
Even with the cyborg aspect of it, I saw Ray Fisher put a lot of
heart emotion into
Yes, but like you look at that tick of when he was cyborg, the way he frames his facial features, the way he looks, you can see him go dead robot, dead cyborg. You see that, but when he needs to come out of it, he comes out of it, and it's
that's
harder
definitely an aspect I didn't realize until you brought up that point. That's a good point, actually. Yeah.
Well, if anything, it was harder for him to have to play that kind of role.
Right, and a lot of people are giving him a lot of crap, and I just don't think it's justified. I really don't. I think there's a lot of stuff going on that we just don't know, even though things have come out. I think they're still going on, and to have his support of his peers to say that speaks volumes. The other things I liked, Cyborg I liked. I love what you guys talked about with Flash. Absolutely, I enjoyed that a lot more. Batman, Superman. Batman was a lot more closer to his roots in BVS than what we got before.
He got back to
wasn't
BVS
so
Batman.
goofy. I did have little ticks of things I had problems with the certain situations with Batman, the Alfred Batman dynamic, but I did really enjoy Alfred. I thought Alfred was playing Batman more than Batman was playing Batman, but that's just me. I still do love Jeremy Irons playing that character. I thought it was a great role for him, and I wanted to actually see more of Jeremy Irons in the scenes than what we got. We got a good deal of it, but I did appreciate what he was doing. Darkseid, great. I would have loved to seen more of him, but I knew we wasn't going to get that. So, I mean, there's things we could pick all night. I've talked enough on everything that I like, but I think we all are on the same page of a lot of this.
Well, as far as real quick, let's try and what we didn't like. Without it, being a huge.
I can be quick about it. I can be quick about it.
Yeah, just like what were the little things that you didn't like about the movie?
Yeah.
I didn't like that Batman was so faith-based in regards to the story and how he was the hopeful one, where Batman's not built that way. Maybe it's because he's gone so long, and maybe he's having a turn, and people have a turn of growth. But that kind of bothered me. I wanted to see more of a darker. I know why he was doing what he was doing to some degree, but it just kind of still felt off to me, a little off in that pacing of what Bruce was and Batman was in that. The one little weird thing, again, maybe you guys can correct me, and one of the things I didn't like is it kind of affected the story a little bit, was like, how did Darkseid get defeated so easy to begin with and then forget where Earth was? Like, that never really got answered. This whole time they're trying to find where the anti-life equation is, but he was already on Earth to begin with. So that was kind of a weird thing. I don't know if I'm just misreading what I saw.
Yeah, we
that was a little off.
Yeah,
that was off.
That,
I didn't really enjoy, as much as this might hurt to hear, I really didn't enjoy Leto's Joker. I had some problems with the way that all felt. I don't have a problem with the whole nightmare scene. I want to see more of that. That was interesting, but I really wasn't quite hugged to that one. Yeah, I'm sure there's some more things I could debrief, but those are a couple little things that I had problems with, with the film.
Mm-hmm. All right, Sean.
I have a few things. In the beginning with the Aquaman scene with the women singing, I know that had a certain purpose, and we discussed this, Rick, that they were deifying him.
Yeah,
he's
a god,
but
yeah.
I still wasn't too crazy about that scene with them. I think it went on a little too long with the singing, even though it had a purpose. I didn't understand. So after the war was won and the mother boxes were split up, you go to the Amazonians. They built a fort around the mother box, right? Mm-hmm. You go to the Atlanteans. They have it in sort of like this, water fort, as it were, and people, on guard, 24/7. Then you go to the land of men, and they bury it in a forest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
right.
And I'm like, I had to.
No, I didn't have an issue with that. It made sense.
You didn't have an issue with that?
No.
I mean, maybe you could explain that, Rick. But I didn't get that one.
To me, it just played to the arrogance of man.
I could see that.
Okay.
Yeah, it just automatically played to the arrogance. They just buried it because they didn't want anything to do with it. They didn't want the actual responsibility of guarding it. They just buried it in the forest and walked away from it.
That's a good point. And again, ask the right questions. Again, that was an angle that I didn't think about. So definitely, I felt like the war for the anti-life, the first war where Darkseid was defeated, was too short. I love Darkseid's character. I love the Thanos character. I feel like he really made those two movies. And I heard this criticism that, Darkseid kind of reminds me of Thanos. I'm getting Thanos vibes from one of the reviewers. And I'm like, wait a minute. You realize Darkseid preceded Thanos 3 years, right? Mm-hmm. Darkseid's first appearance was in 1970. Thanos' first appearance was in 1973. So, right. And Rick brought this up too. Marvel and DC have always sort of borrowed from each other.
Absolutely.
Okay? So I would have liked to see more. I feel like that war scene could have been longer. I felt like it could have made that part in the movie a little bit more dramatic. I would have loved to see Darkseid, and again, he took out the Green Lantern at that time, right? But I would have liked to see him, just like Steppenwolf, I would have liked to see him put more work in destruction and chaos, and sort of put it never felt like the gods of that time, the protectors of that time, were in any real danger when Darkseid arrived, right? So I would have liked to see more of that scene kind of play out, and some like Gladiator, Russell Crowe type shit, right?
Yeah.
The last thing I would say that I didn't like was at the end when they penetrated Steppenwolf's fort, and the battle's going on, and they're fighting against Steppenwolf, and Superman shows up right when Steppenwolf is about to put the axe to Cyborg. Mm-hmm. Superman shows up, and his line is, "I'm not impressed." Mm-hmm. Right? I wasn't too crazy about that. I wasn't too crazy about that scene because there was so much tension built up, and the Man of Steel finally arrives, and he's just like, "I'm not impressed." And the way he just I like the way he just like fought Steppenwolf and just kind of just threw him around like he wasn't anything. But I would have liked to see more of a Superman Steppenwolf battle where Superman took some hits. It seems like when Superman got there, you just knew it was over. Like and for him to sort of, and again, for him to treat the moment like whatever. I mean, listen, they lost, right? There's real stakes here. The whole Earth existence would have been done, and for him to arrive and just be so sarcastic about it, I wasn't necessarily feeling that part of it.
I agree with you there.
Interesting.
I agree with you there. I also would add to that I kind of felt like Superman went overkill on Steppenwolf. There's a reason that, yes, he's stronger and he's showing this, but it got to the point where it was almost a little over the top for what Supes would have done, what Clark Kent would have done. Because we've seen this type of character be shown appropriately through the Justice League Unlimited cartoons and how Superman the animated series, like, we've seen different levels of what Supes is and how he fights these types of characters, and he can go toe to toe with them all, of course. And we know this already, but it felt like it was just a little too much. It kind of fell right back into that before Lois kind of snapped him back. It kind of felt like that was still happening, but it was directed to Steppenwolf.
Well, I didn't have a problem with it because we always see Superman hold back.
Of course.
And that was a time where, and again, there was so much built up in that scene.
Right.
Where, again, everybody was full throttle, right? So for Superman to kind of let go a little bit, I actually enjoyed watching that.
It's not that I didn't enjoy it. I just think that there was a point where it was like, okay, this might be going a little too far on that level. But trust me, I enjoyed it. I did enjoy it. The kid in me is like, this is cool. He's giving it what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think the scene where Superman comes in back in, like you were talking about, the scene from the Justice League version was weird.
Yeah.
And the scene with this one, I think no matter how you slice it, him showing back up was going to be weird. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that was probably, I wouldn't be surprised. Let's put it this way. I wouldn't be surprised if Snyder had a problem with that. I wouldn't be surprised if he was like, how do I have him show back up? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because when we saw what they did in the Justice version, it didn't work. And then you see what they did with this one, you're like, all right, it didn't work for me. So, I wouldn't be surprised if that was something that probably wasn't so easily done. You know what I'm saying? Because how do we have him show back up? And it makes sense, or it fits, or it gels.
But I don't. But Rick, not to cut you off, but I don't think he had to say anything. Honestly, that could have been a situation where he just showed up. I mean, one of the best lines in that movie, was from Steppenwolf, where he was telling Desat, he's like, "There's no protectors here, no Kryptonian, right?" I mean, that could have been a scene where Superman showed up, he deflected, he caught the axe, he caught the brunt of the axe, nothing happened, and Steppenwolf could have stepped back and said, "Kryptonian," like something. But Superman necessarily didn't have to say anything in that moment, is what I'm saying. And I think whatever he could have said, it just seemed kind of corny. It was just corny the way that whole thing was played out. He didn't have to speak. His presence, I think, would have been dramatic enough that, at the last minute he gets in the way of that axe, and now the Kryptonian is here, and now Steppenwolf is like, whoa. Yeah, I might not succeed at this,
Yeah, and this is not to compare and contrast. I'm really not trying to, but I think the best moment I'm trying to think with this that would have worked is we needed a moment that was kind of like Captain America picking up Mjolnir. We needed that moment, like right there, is the way I feel about it, where we just like, oh my goodness, we didn't see that coming, and I don't think we got that. And I think that's the best way I can explain it.
Agreed. I think that moment was coming probably in future Justice League movies, but again, Superman is a strange character to write because he's so powerful. Yeah, and I felt like the characters were in real danger until Superman showed up. The fact that they still failed when Superman showed up, I think, was pretty dope. But again, it's kind of hard to balance Superman because Superman is so incredibly strong. I mean, he took on the whole Justice League on his own. When they resurrected him. So to build up tension with him in a scene is very interesting to do that. Like, well, I mean, it's not as easy.
Yeah, I mean, they did it pretty. As far as I'm concerned, they did it pretty well with Doomsday. But
good point.
The thing with Superman, I definitely didn't have again, one of the, like, I've had the conversation with Sean. One of the things that makes it not hard, it's hard until you understand it. One of the things that makes it hard to look at Snyder's movies and critique some of his movies is because everything he does is has a wider berth to it.
Yeah.
So it makes more sense that Superman would come in and fucking plow through Steppenwolf, because once he got to Darkseid, it wasn't going to be that easy. You know what I'm saying?
No, I agree with you.
To me, him coming through and plowing through Darkseid was to show you that once he got to plowing through Steppenwolf was to show you the difference when he got to Darkseid. You know what I'm saying? Like, that to me, so because when you look at it just as what it is, then it's like, well, yeah, he got there and just plowed through, Steppenwolf, and it was just like, well, fuck, we can all just go home. Superman's here now. You know what I'm saying? But that was to juxtapose when he got to Darkseid, and then you go, oh shit, like Steppenwolf wasn't nothing, but Darkseid is going to make him work for it. Unfortunately, we're never going to see that.
Never got that.
Yeah.
So that to me is like part of the thing. It's hard sometimes to look at some of these things with Snyder, because for him he's always got more to it. Like, when you see the rest of the story, then this little thing over here makes sense.
Yeah.
That happens a lot with a lot of his story arcs.
And just to add to that, since you brought up Darkseid, Rick, like, you brought this to my attention as well, that even Darkseid, within that short frame, he had a character arc, because the Darkseid that was defeated in the first war, he was a much younger version of himself.
Yeah, he was a much younger Darkseid. He showed up on Earth with no armor on.
Right.
He jumped out, showed up on Earth with no armor on. He eventually got
impulsive.
his ass. Yeah, eventually got his ass whooped. Yeah. And then the Darkseid you see later on is much bigger.
Yeah.
And he's got a full set of armor on and everything.
Right.
So it's even Darkseid in that short movie had his own little story arc. He was a different Darkseid at the end of that movie than he was the very first time you see him.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, the battle with Darkseid in the beginning would have been great. Yes, if we could have had if they could have played it similar to the way they did Man of Steel, they could have started the movie with the battle. You know what I'm saying?
Could have done that too.
And given us a little bit more of the battle, which is plausible. I mean, we still have people out here that bitch and moan it was too much. Oh, it's too much. Like, there's actually people that say that we never needed to see Krypton in Man of Steel. Like, there was a waste of time, which makes no sense to me, and I would slap somebody dead in their face for saying that. I mean, as far as the rest of the movie, I mean, I don't know. I liked the organic way that Lois showed up better than the Batman
being brought there.
Yeah, bringing her there by Alfred scene. That whole thing. I like that better. As far as what I didn't like,
Come on, Rick. The movie was too long, Rick. Come on, you know that. It was just 4 hours,
For me, it's like, for me at the end of the day, again, it was Snyder putting all his cards on the table. You know what I'm saying? Like, if this wasn't the movie where he knew he wasn't coming back and this was it was just done. And he knew he was coming back. We're gonna get more versions of this universe. Then I think there's a lot more that I could really say about the way the ending of the movie happened, the epilogue, and certain things about that. The whole scene with Batman and Joker was a passion part. Like, there was when you watch the interview between him, Snyder, and his wife, she says that scene was the one scene in the movie that was actually put into the movie that wasn't originally in the movie. That wasn't a part of the original cut of his movie. That was him saying he always wanted to eventually get to the point where he had Batman and Joker
in the same scene.
You know what I'm saying? That was something that he always hoped he could get to, and it was something that he really wanted to do, and he appreciated Leto's Joker. And so for him, it was just that was the part of the movie where he's like, please let me do this. And they were like, all right, cool, you can go ahead and film that shit. And the other thing, like I was telling Sean, I don't know if you know this, Graven, but none of that scene was none of them were in the same scene when they filmed that scene.
Right. They were different. Yeah. They were different areas.
Yeah. Joker filmed his scene first by himself. Then Ben Affleck filmed his version of the scene by himself. And then Deathstroke and Mira filmed, I think, together. With Cyborg, they filmed together, those three. And then the Flash actually filmed his scenes through Zoom. So Snyder had to direct him through a Zoom call.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's incredible, man.
You know what I'm saying? So
That's crazy.
That just so he can put that scene together is something that he really just wanted to see. Joker. Apart from Batman. But yeah.
I enjoyed that scene, man. The tension between the Joker and Batman. You knew that they really, I mean, it was mentioned several times that Batman was in Gotham for 20 years. Mm. We don't know how long he had to deal with the Joker in those 20 years, but you could tell that they had some real history with each other.
Oh yeah.
There was some real losses on both sides. So that was an incredible dialogue to me, and I think, again, Jared Leto was another person who was redeemed in this. I saw, ever since The Dark Knight, I didn't see another Joker. I saw, and of course, the Joker movie I think was its own thing. It's a complete version of its own thing. Mm-hmm. But I really saw the fantastical version, the comic version. I saw a version of the Joker in Leto in that one scene, and I think he really redeemed himself from the first from the Suicide Squad. Mm. Yeah. Mm. I don't even want to go into that one. That was just again.
Yeah, I think it's tough, man, because I guarantee you there's so much more that Snyder would have wanted to put into that scene between Batman and Joker, and he only got to do what he got to do, and I'm sure it wasn't easy to do even that, and to pull it off. I'll say this: the little bit of that scene that I saw, I would be willing to watch more of that world. I want to see that play out. Like, where the fuck is this gonna go?
I agree.
All of a sudden, you go from Luthor talking to Deathstroke about Bruce Wayne being Batman to now Deathstroke and Batman are on the same team. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's
a lot there too
there's so much meat and juice in that story. I'm like, whoa, explain this, please. Mm-hmm. Explain how this happened.
Honestly, it's the similar storyline as Injustice, the video game. So it's not too far-fetched to where they were running that line of that story from. So, we have the same type of thing that's happened in those games. It's just now it's on screen and it's a little different. I would love to see it too. I think we could get a whole movie of that. I think it'd be great. I think it'd be amazing.
Absolutely.
Well,
yep.
Last thing I'll say just real quick before we wrap up. Man. Okay, so the idea of J.J. Abrams taking over the Superman mantle, and potentially doing what I would only guess would be a Val Zod movie with Michael B. Jordan. Real quick, what do you guys think about that one?
I don't know too much of the history of that version of Superman. What I'll say about J.J. Abrams is sometimes he's hit or miss. I love what he did with the Star Trek movies. I think he added a different spin on those. Not all the Star Trek movies were the greatest, but I liked his take on it.
I enjoy them.
I'm a fan of most of his work. What happened with the Star Wars universe, with him starting with The Rise and then trying to correct everything from The Last Jedi and piece together,
I don't know how much of that was his fault.
Right, like I don't necessarily want to blame him for that, so that was kind of haphazard. I don't know, man. I would like for it to be successful because, again, I'm a fan of all this, and I want to see it continue, and I want to see more stories to be told and stuff. So I don't know, man. He's a wild card, in my opinion. I would lean on the side of we're going to get something entertaining. I don't know if we're going to get something as thought-provoking as a Snyder-verse version of anything, but it's going to. I have a feeling it's going to be a fun movie, but there are going to be some plot holes for sure.
Yeah, Yeah, as far as me, I think cohesion is the key word here. I think that we're not. A lot of people are beaten up. DC viewers, fans, people like that. We're all beaten up. We're exhausted. You know, mind you, I go back and say I'm a Marvel fan as well. I'm more of an indie fan outside of both of those companies. I'm an indie guy, but when you look at it all and the track record of what's happened with DC, it's hard for anyone to truly have faith that they're going to do things correctly with any director that comes on board right now, because it's been so chopped up. There's no cohesion.
Yeah, DC can't catch a break, man.
Right, and I think that's what's also hurting people's hopefulness to say, hey, let's hope something good. It's kind of like we're just like, okay, all right, we got this one. We're thankful we finally got this to see this, but at this point, what are you going to do? Because we're not confident. I mean, I know I'm not. I'm not confident. It doesn't mean that I think that J.J. Abrams is a horrible director. He's a phenomenal director and a creator in a lot of rights. There's stuff that he's been involved with that I just extremely love. I love Fringe. I love, the Star Trek universe that he created. I love all that stuff. Star Trek itself, I know that there's a lot of arguments there to what he did, but I think for what it was brilliantly casted. I think that it was almost like in the stars for it to be casted the way it is, and it just spoke volumes to what that world could be outside of what the other Star Trek worlds were. And mind you, I know it was in a separate type of timeline and world. People kind of get that all mixed up and they think it's the same and they get angry, and I understand. But I think he's strong enough to do a good Superman film and kind of work on those things. But again, because of what happened with Star Trek Star Wars with him, I feel, and I'm not blaming him, but because we don't really know how that shook out. We really don't know. So taking him from moving from that to this, I'm not quite sure. I want to, like you said, I'm hopeful. Like you, I want it to be good, but I'm not quite sure. And I'm not quite sure we need it. I'm not quite sure we need that type of process right now. I think we need everybody to get things on the same level, and then let's move forward the best way possible.
And you know what, Grave? You just gave me. I'll end my final thoughts on all of the whole podcast is this, and I'll be remiss if I didn't say this, but just to add to what you just finished saying, I don't know if we necessarily need a new version of Superman, even though it would be good to see, all right, if this is a totally different version of Superman that I'm not familiar with, I would like to see that. Right. I would definitely like to see more of Henry Cavill. So that's the disappointing part. Yeah. It's like, why can't we have both? We have to addition by subtraction kind of thing. So that's the one thing. But my final thought on just Zack Snyder's Justice League is, and I'm going to call this the Zack Snyder trilogy, even though I know it wasn't supposed to play out like that. But just like the Nolan trilogy, I don't know if Snyder's going to come back to do any more of these. So with Man of Steel, BVS, and now Justice League that we finally get to see, I don't think people are going to fully understand right now the full scope of this creation of movies. They're not perfect by any means, even though, to me, in my opinion, some of them come close. But I really feel like time and history these movies are going to age well throughout time and history. And as much as I love Marvel, my disappointment with Marvel is that, with the exception of maybe 5-6 of those movies, I feel like the majority of them aren't going to age well, and they don't have much depth. And I feel like these movies do have that, and they will age well. I think film historians will see this for what it is over time, but I don't think we're really realizing that right now.
All right, true that. Yeah, I mean, I can't really disagree with that. I mean, I definitely think it's definitely, we're entering into the age of superhero movie fatigue. I said it after Endgame. I think Marvel painted themselves into a corner, the one that's not going to be easy for them to get out of. There's a lot of great things that they have coming out. Eternals is one of them. They got a lot of cool things that they're going to be coming out with, and hopefully they're good. They also have a lot of crappy bullshit that they're still pushing that they need to stop pushing, like the Captain Marvel. So they're still pushing that agenda, which I think is their biggest downfall, the fact that their agenda seems to be more important than creating good stories. For Kevin Feige to come out and specifically say that the future of Marvel is female, You know what I'm saying? And he literally said that. You know, it's to me showing that your agenda speaks more to you than just making sure you tell good stories going on into the future. You know what I'm saying? Like that should be your thought process, not whether what propaganda is what nonsense. So yeah, so I mean, it's gonna be hard. I think Marvel's gonna is gonna have a lot to a lot of rebuilding to do coming up here. The Falcon Winter Soldier so far seems to be, I haven't watched the second episode. I watched the first one. First one was okay. You know, it started out great. The second episode I haven't watched yet, but I'm on the fence on how that one's going to play out. It's only 6 episodes, so you know, I don't know. I mean, Graven, I know you watched WandaVision, right?
Yes, I did.
I didn't watch WandaVision. You know, maybe I'll get to it now that it's done. I'll just binge watch it because I didn't care really. But you know, I know that was better than it seemed from what I'm hearing. It actually was a pretty decent show. So you know, I think Marvel's got some stuff under his belt, but I think a lot of people are reaching a certain level of fatigue now, and they're starting. You know, I don't think the box office is going to play out as good as it did before. I think I wouldn't be surprised if you see numbers starting to drop. It's not going to be as like, oh my gosh, billions of dollars like it was before.
Right.
I think these numbers are going to start slowing down, and people are going to start. You know, it's not as big of a deal as it was anymore. You know, especially when you start taking away their characters. There's no Steve Rogers. And now Steve Rogers is coming back, and there's no Tony Stark. And now Tony Stark is coming back. You know, it's like whatever. You know, so
I think the true test of the box office theory that you're saying, Rick, is going to be the Black Widow movie. Right, because they pushed that back to, you know, we might get more. I'm just predicting we might get more theatrical openings for the release, but we'll see. Right?
Yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah, I'm speaking more like when we're fully out of this whole, you know, this whole pandemic situation,
right.
and everything gets somewhat back to what we call normal.
Right.
I think it could just be from the pandemic alone. I think enough has changed that the scope of not only how we consume our movies now is going to be different. I just think it's all different now. It's not the same as it was the first 10 years Marvel put their shoes on. You know? Right. So, but either way, we'll see. I mean, you know, I'm sure we'll be around to talk about it and bitch and moan and have something to say, regardless. But that being said, we're going to end it here. You know, I know, Graven, I know you have something going on this weekend, right?
Yeah, this weekend, but we're going to.
I don't know if this is going to be out by the weekend. By the time I edit this, it'll be already over. You got anything else coming on after this weekend?
Yeah, actually, after this weekend, which originally what's coming up on this Sunday is going to be Olo Toy and Comic and Toy Show in Orlando here. But by the time this kind of comes out, we'll be doing a show in Ocala, Florida, called the Brick City Comic and Toy Show. That'll be April 17th that we're doing down there. I'll be set up, me and my wife. We'll have some tables down there so you guys can come out and meet us, talk. We can talk nerd stuff, comic stuff, life stuff. It's all good. Art stuff. We're all interested in that. So, yeah, definitely. Just check us out on artofravenwolf.com. You can look at our social media, and it'll tell us all the dates that we're going different places. Not a lot of them this year based on the pandemic, but we're trying to get there slowly.
All right. And, of course, you know, like I said, I'll put everybody's description information in the description box. You know, make sure you come back and check us out. We'll do more stuff. I mean, well, hopefully we get to see some more faces on the screen here. Bring some other of our nerd friends into the scope and do some talks. The goal is to definitely keep doing this, people. So keep watching. Leave your comments in the comment section below. Join the conversation. Just make sure when you do join the conversation, use your brain and not just your emotions. We want to have logical conversation with people. All right. So
hey, next up, Kong versus Zilla.
That's it.
Yeah, when is that coming?
It's coming out 31st.
31st. I mean, there some people already have a review about it, so.
Yeah. Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah,
this will be an interesting conversation.
I'm excited for this one.
This is going to be an interesting conversation coming from me because I'm I admit I'm a little biased towards Team Zilla, so
It's
Yeah.
gonna be an interesting conversation.
I'll put that disclaimer out first.
I'm gonna be sitting. I'm just gonna sit back and watch this one unfold. Like,
All right.
all right, guys. Keep your eyes open. We will be back. This is the the Bloody Nerd Podcast. We'll see you guys soon. Peace out.
Go on. Take care, guys.